So it's been a little minute since I've done special effects, so we're gonna go ahead and do something today. Now, I have an idea in my head, but I kind of want to go ahead and kind of see how this goes. This is gonna be like a little half and half talk through tutorial, plus I'll have a voiceover here and there. I don't know, I'm just gonna sit down, have some fun with you guys. First things first, yes, I've been growing my hair out. It's already been in the process for like a year already. Of course, I've had quite a few baby trims along the way, but we're gonna go ahead and put our hair back because we will be using a bald cap today. Hair pretty much all put back. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Wuchi bald cap. This one's actually in a flesh tone. We're gonna go ahead and use this to dye. Just kind of unravel it real quick. So just trying to get this done, and voila. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this one. Trying to pretty much just see where and how this bald cap is going to lay on my face, so I'm just trying to pull all the hairs back. So to stick this down, I'm gonna go ahead and use Prosthetic adhesive. So this is actually a medical grade adhesive, especially designed for prosthetic and movie work, a little bit more professional, just because this is some really strong stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and use that to stick down our bald cap today. As I turned this around and was literally just like, why is it not spilling? And there's a freaking cap in here. Just... there we go. So we're gonna go ahead and use a little bit of this to glue the edge of my bald cap down. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is I'm just gonna take the Prosthetic and just stick down the edges of this bald cap. Now, because I'm putting a prosthetic over this, I'm actually not gonna worry so much about blending the edges down. I will still put a little something over it just to make sure that it's really stuck down, but I'm not really gonna worry just because I have a prosthetic going over the bald cap, so that's gonna hide the edges anyways. That's actually sticking real well. Video purposes, I won't be focusing so much on these parts because it's gonna get covered up anyways. I'm taking a little bit of the Prosthetic and I'm going to run it through the edges of the bald cap. I'm gonna take a little bit of liquid latex and I'm gonna go ahead and kind of place this over the edges of the bald cap to help with how it blends and also how it holds. Again, even though we are putting a prosthetic over this, I just want to go ahead and make sure that it holds in place. So the bald cap is pretty much glued down, and I also glued down my eyebrows with a little bit of a glue stick so that way no latex, no Prosthetic gets to them and rips them off. So starting on with the application, I'm actually using this bad boy right here, which I got off of infectedeffects.com. I'll actually leave a link down below, but this dude makes some of the most amazing prosthetics I've seen ever. This is very lightweight, super soft as well, very flexible, and I like the fact that this was meant to fit quite a few faces, so I'm excited to try this out actually. So we're gonna go ahead, and this is the one that we're gonna use, and let's get started. I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit of that Prosthetic and use it to glue this down. Whenever you are working on a prosthetic, you always want to work from the center of the face outward. So you want to go ahead and start from the middle and then slowly start working your way outwards. It's gonna take a little minute, but you know what? We are here for it. So I'm taking a little bit of Prosthetic on a Q-tip. Kind of place that on my nose. I know that it looks so gross, but here we go. For safety measures, I'm actually gonna go ahead and take the Prosthetic adhesive and also stick this to the back of the nose. What I'm doing is I'm placing Prosthetic adhesive on both the back of the prosthetic and my face, so that way it's kind of like contact glue almost. Go ahead and kind of let that dry for a little bit. Let this part dry too. And then we're gonna go ahead and very slowly and very carefully start sticking this down. This prosthetic is not really like an exact replica of my face, so it's not gonna fit 100% perfect, but we're gonna make it work. And then, of course, gonna go ahead and start sticking everything else down, being very careful where you place the edges. I'm gonna go ahead and switch to voiceover here because I was concentrating a lot, and throughout the rest of the video also I was trying to speak and then the mouthpiece made it a little bit impossible to sound normal. So we're gonna go ahead and switch to voiceover now. So what I'm doing is pretty much just taking the prosthetic and applying it with the Prosthetic. Now one thing that I do want to let you guys know is if you are working with a prosthetic, especially a latex or a gelatin prosthetic where the edges are super duper thin, you want to be very, very careful that the edges don't fold back because they're just gonna go ahead and make the edge line very thick, and you don't want that. The smoothness and how soft the edges are meant to blend into the skin. So what I'm doing after I'm done sticking the prosthetic down, I'm taking another layer of Prosthetic on that Q-tip, and I'm gonna go ahead and just place this along the edges of the prosthetic to blend them and to also make sure that it holds in place. Then after that was dry, I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit of translucent powder and set the Prosthetic in place just because it can tend to stay a little shiny. Plus, this is also an easy way for you to know if you need to smooth it down a little bit further because it mattifies it down so that way you can see the bumps a little bit easier. But if you don't see any bumps, then you're pretty much good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and use the exact same methods with the Prosthetic to stick down these ears. Now, I did make earpieces and spikes for this character. I made them out of this clay called Model Magic. You can literally find it at Michael's for very cheap. I just went ahead and I sculpted them and then let them dry, painted them, and now I'm pretty much sticking them down with. Now, the spikes were being a little bit wobbly, and I also wanted to help blend them down into the scalp a little bit better. So I went ahead and I took little pieces of cotton wool, saturated it in latex, and used this to blend the edges of the spike with the bald cap. Now, I wanted to use an airbrush to get a more full coverage finish on the prosthetic, but I realized this might take me a little too long. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to using body paints now. And what I'm using are Mayron Paradise paints in the shade lime green and black. I'm mixing them together and pretty much just brushing it through the prosthetic and the bald cap as well, even my neck. Now, these are water activated face paints, so they're very comfortable to use. I'm even taking my airbrush and making sure to go into every single nook and cranny. This first layer needs to be very full coverage, so make sure to get into every single nook and cranny for the next step. So what I'm doing now is a technique called dry brushing. So let me explain. I'm taking the lime green shade and very lightly with my foundation brush, I'm going over the whole prosthetic because it's gonna capture all the detail that we put on before. So that's why we want to go ahead and start off with a darker base so that way once you go in with the lighter colors on top, everything pops and you can see the detail. Now with the lime green paint and a stippling brush, I'm gonna go ahead and stipple this all over the prosthetic, the bald cap, ears, and the neck. And now I'm using a stippling brush for this technique because it's gonna give me more of that very patchy, very uneven skin-like texture. And we're also gonna go ahead and build layers so that way we can build up the intensity of the color. So now I'm taking the yellow and the white Paradise paints by Mayron, and I'm gonna go ahead and with the exact same stipple brush, I'm stippling this along the highlighted areas of the prosthetic. So anything that protrudes forward, you wanna go ahead and lighten up those areas because we are creating dimension. The creature was starting to look a little too pale, so I went ahead and just added the yellow by itself to bring more of those colors back and to also make this creature look a little bit more green rather than gray. So to get a feel of what was going on, I went ahead and I did one side of the face, and I'm gonna go ahead and repeat that on the other side for you guys. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my airbrush and using Pro Air airbrush paints. So these are alcohol-based paints. They are waterproof, sweat-proof, everything proof. They dry to a matte finish and also very full coverage. They are perfect for special effects work. And what I'm doing is I'm creating all the dimension, all the contour, and I'm enhancing the texture using the airbrush. So using an airbrush is gonna give you a much cleaner, much smoother finish. Also, in terms of shading and blending, it does do a much faster job. Now I'm taking the Skin Illustrator FX palette. Yes, I've had this for years. It's still in existence. I am mixing the green and the black from that palette with 99% isopropyl alcohol on a chipped brush, and I'm using this to flick on paint onto my skin. So this is creating a lot more of that very skin-like broken down texture. It looks a lot more realistic. Also, it creates more dimension. Now, to get more into the details of the prosthetic, I diluted the black paint and then very lightly with a little brush, I'm just getting into those wrinkles, and then with my finger, I'm kind of blending and patting the edge away so that way it doesn't look so harsh. What we're trying to do is we're still trying to get that dimension in there by really enhancing the texture this prosthetic has without going overboard. So that's why I like using alcohol activated paints, because you can get a light wash of it without looking so fake and opaque. Kind of noticed I needed to be a little bit more contoured, so I went ahead with the black and just airbrushed some of the contours on my cheeks, hollowed out the eyes a little bit more, filled in the nose, and then followed up with the same procedures with the alcohol-based paint. A lot of these looks do involve going back and forth, so after I was done shading, I went ahead with the yellow again and with the stipple brush and just added this solely to the highlighted areas to bring those out a little bit more. Then I went ahead and I took the white from the Skin Illustrator palette and painted the spikes and the horns with this. Again, I like the fact that these give you a slight wash of the color because they looked very bone-like instead of just stark white, so I love using these paints for that kind of effect. Also, it did kind of leave a little bit more of a shiny effect, so that was unintentional, but still I really liked it. Now I'm taking a stencil that has a scaly pattern with airbrush paint in black. I'm gonna go ahead and airbrush the outer perimeter of the prosthetic, kind of fading in lightly towards the center. So keep the center of the prosthetic with no scaly patterns, and then keep the outside with all the scaly patterns. Again, going back in with the yellow just to enhance those highlights a little bit more. Keep in mind, a lot of these looks are going back and forth. So once you're done shading, you might have to go back in with highlight to bring those areas further. You might have to add more shading. So it's a little bit of going back and forth. It is a little bit time consuming, but it is worth it in the end. To add a little bit more realism, I'm actually taking castor sealer, which is kind of like an oil, and I'm placing this along the mouth and the nose to make them look wet and mucusy. And then I'm taking Prosthetic adhesive, and I'm gonna stick these little bits of crepe wool to my head. Now, it was starting to look a little bit more like a dinosaur, and I know that the Chupacabras is more of a reptilian. However, it's still kind of mixed with a dog, so the description says. I looked up a whole bunch of versions. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit of crepe wool and attach this to my head using a little bit of Prosthetic, just by sticking it down and then pulling out the excess and then getting little itty bitty strands, because I kind of wanted to make this creature look like it was kind of balding. I know that it looks super duper weird, but it still made it super cool. And I'm gonna go ahead and airbrush a little bit of black on the hair so that it didn't look so white. Went ahead and I painted the rest of my body following the same procedures as the face. Added some claws, fangs, and contacts. These are from hollowojos.com. I will leave the link down below. And that is it for this special effects Chupacabras inspired look. I really hope that you guys did like this video, and if you all did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All those links will be down below, as well as the list of products that I used in this video. So I really hope to see you guys next time, and bye!